Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the City Planning Commission. Today's date is November 17th. We are starting our public meeting now. I'm Dan Garodnick, Chair of the Commission. A quorum has been established. Before we get into our agenda, thanks again to the City Council for approval of Long Island City, 14,700 new homes, 4,350 income-restricted affordable, most housing generated by a neighborhood-specific rezoning in the city's history. A lot more than just about housing. Can expand commercial and industrial space to bring 14,400 new jobs to the neighborhood, also delivers significant investments to infrastructure, schools, Queensbridge houses, and enhance and expand open space. Connected waterfront esplanade from Queensbridge Park to Gantry Plaza State Park, and a revitalized park underneath the Queensboro Bridge, which will better connect the neighborhood for all its residents. My deepest thanks to Councilmember Julie Wan for her leadership and to the entire City Council for voting in favor of this transformative plan. Together, we are creating a more vibrant and welcoming future for Long Island City and taking another important step toward tackling our city's housing shortage. But even as this one is approved, we're doing other work elsewhere in the city. I just want to thank everybody who attended our workshop on the White Plains Road Neighborhood Plan. This is a collaborative effort with Council members Riley and Dinowitz. We'll create opportunities for new homes, income-restricted affordable homes, support small businesses, enhance public realm along this very key Bronx corridor. And so if you're interested in that plan, nyc.gov/White Plains Road is the place to be. On today's agenda, we have a special public meeting for a vote, followed by a couple of items beginning public review this afternoon. We're going to start with the department's staff recommendation and the Commission's vote on Herkimer Williams in East New York, Brooklyn. This project would create 4 new buildings with nearly 990 new homes, of which nearly 250 would be income-restricted, affordable permanently, as well as offices, retail, light industrial uses, and 20,000 square feet of new public open space. To facilitate a portion of that open space along Van Sinderen Avenue, the city's Economic Development Corporation and Department of Citywide Administrative Services are co-applicants, aligning the proposal with approximately $500 million in public investment into the Broadway Junction Transit Hub. This proposal would give residents and workers easy access to the A, C, L, J, and Z trains and the Long Island Railroad, as well as a future IBX station. It builds on the city's ongoing investment in this community, which includes the Sustainable Communities East New York Study, the East New York Neighborhood Plan, and the Broadway Junction Vision Plan. Staying in Brooklyn, we'll move to Bay Ridge for a proposal at 9201 4th Avenue, as well as in Red Hook at 46 Nelson Street. And we'll look at council modifications on a couple of projects that were previously approved by the Commission. So, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Planning Commission Review Session for Monday, November 17th, 2025. The time is 1:15 p.m. and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a future vote item for today's special public meeting. Staff have prepared reports for Herkimer Williams, which had a public hearing at the October 8th public meeting. Jesse Hirakawa is here to present.
Awesome. Thank you again. So as part of this session, before your vote on the Herkimer Williams rezoning project, the department would like to provide a response to some questions and discussion raised at the previous public hearing. That was on November 3rd. And then I will also share a staff recommendation on the project following. So at the last public hearing, the Commission raised several questions regarding the sound environment and overall quality of the open spaces adjacent to the elevated rail structure. The applicant did provide a follow-up response from the discussion, which was included in your packet a couple of days ago. But basically, in brief summary, I'll say that the applicant team emphasized the importance of the east-west corridor connector along Herkimer and wanted to reiterate the new open space along Van Sinderen that will be coordinated with EDC, creating the full block end of open space while also opening up Herkimer Street at the intersection, as you can kind of see at the picture on the left here, your left, and how that will really continue to have that connectivity between the Broadway Junction station and into the applicant's site as we go under the elevated. Additionally, in coordination with DOT and EDC, the applicant is ensuring signage, wayfinding, and lighting along Van Sinderen Avenue and Herkimer Street for connections between the Broadway Junction Station, East New York LIRR, and also to the east within the applicant's development. The applicant agreed that they do need to partner with various agencies to implement these improvements, and they have been in active conversations with DOT, Department of Transportation, EDC, Economic Development Corporation, and the MTA, and plan to continue to as they move into their design development and construction phases. Upon discussion with the MTA, the department reached out and they had noted to us that there's ongoing upgrades to the Broadway Junction station infrastructure, including track and rail rehabilitation work intended to bring sound of good work and also work on the vibration and sounds of the area, as well as good state of repairs like painting along portions of the elevated structure that will be ultimately efforts to meaningfully improve the conditions around the site. Additionally, from EDC, they have their plaza design consultants, right? They're working on an RFP for that area. They're also aware of the rail adjacency, and they're going to definitely take into consideration as part of their design parameters moving forward. However, they did want to note that, any improvements are expected to be limited given, the existing site constraints. And lastly, within the final EIS updates that were later, I'm going to talk about that a little later, but right now I'll note on this diagram that the pedestrian impacts that Commissioner Osorio and I think Benjamin brought up earlier were identified that there were several intersections and crosswalk expansions that will be as part of the proposed mitigations as additional pedestrians in the area, circled in white here on at Fulton and Van Sinderen, and also Herkimer and East New York that are circled in white were identified as mitigation to adverse impacts for pedestrians to provide wider crosswalks in the area. This was also paired with the applicant's proposal for also in these areas, they're proposing street wall setbacks, right, as part of their waivers that will also create wider sidewalks and plazas and new landscaping for the areas that are all highlighted in green along the streets. Additionally, the department would like to note that there are several precedents across the city, such as, to identify one, Dutch Kills Green along the elevated M, E, and R trains in Long Island City, and other successful open spaces that are located along elevated rail infrastructures as well. Moving on to the FEIS, the draft EIS identified potential air quality impacts to mobile sources at intersections within the project area. This DEIS analysis indicated that annual PM 2.5 levels could exceed the de minimis threshold, and the impact was reported as unmitigated in the DEIS. However, between the DEIS and the FEIS, additional modeling and analysis was conducted using more comprehensive analysis procedures. Other updates included the use of updated vehicle emissions data and new modeling tools. The refined analysis concluded that the PM 2.5 concentrations would remain below the annual de minimis criterion, meaning that the proposed actions would not result in any significant adverse air quality impacts. Additionally, questions related to pedestrian impacts from the Commission, the FEIS concluded that there were significant impacts to the 4 sidewalks, 3 crosswalks, and 5 corners during peak 1 or more peak hours, and those mitigations to crosswalk widenings, sidewalk improvements I had just mentioned earlier, but also there were other areas including like signal modifications and also obstructions located further in the FEIS report. During construction, the temporary impacts are proposed to be mitigated with signal timing and phasing changes and crosswalk widenings to maintain pedestrian flow and vehicle operations. And so lastly, the department recommends approval of the actions before you today, which would facilitate the redevelopment of these underutilized parcels adjacent to the Broadway Junction Transit Complex in East New York with a mixed-use transit-oriented development. And since 2008, the city has undertaken multiple studies and planning efforts that identified Broadway Junction as a major regional hub with significant but unrealized potential. This area was intentionally excluded from the 2016 East New York Neighborhood Plan rezoning, which changed much of the surrounding area from M1 districts to medium-density mixed-use districts due to complex infrastructure, fragmented ownership, and the need for coordinated development and public realm improvements. with a commitment of over $500 million in public realm and accessibility investments, new ADA upgrades, and the construction of the 2440 Fulton Street office building, now home to Human Resources Administration. The Herkimer-Williams proposal builds on these public commitments to deliver new permanently income-restricted housing, housing in general, and commercial and light industrial space, and publicly accessible open areas, transforming underutilized parcels into a comprehensive transit-oriented district area. The department supports the proposed zoning map amendment to establish the C64 and M16 districts, which would enable a balanced mix of housing, commercial, and modern industrial uses appropriate for a regional and local hub. These districts provide the density and flexibility needed to achieve long-standing city and community goals for Broadway Junction aligned with the past city studies. The department also recommends approval for the zoning text amendments, which would map a mandatory inclusionary housing area and modify ownership requirements to allow the large-scale general development to span parcels separated by the elevated rail structure, ensuring a coordinated and cohesive site plan across the entire development site. Third, the department supports the use of the large-scale general development special permit, which would allow for the redistribution of the floor area across parcels and the modification of height, setback, and rear yard regulations. These waivers are appropriate given the site's complex physical conditions, including their irregular parcels and the adjacent elevated rail structure, and they support the creation of a superior site plan with new open spaces, more spaces along sidewalks, and spaces for future tenants and residents and current neighboring residents. The special permit allows density to be concentrated along wider corridors, such as East New York Avenue and Fulton Street, away from elevated rail infrastructure while stepping down towards pedestrian areas and open spaces to ensure a more comfortable human-scaled environment. Fourth, the department supports the retail special permit, which would allow for larger format retail and service uses exceeding the 10,000 square foot within the proposed M16 district. This action supports the area's role for the regional center for jobs and services, activating ground floors along Herkimer Street and Williams Place, and providing employment opportunities consistent with the previous city planning efforts. Lastly, the department supports the acquisition and site selection action, which will allow the city to establish new publicly accessible open space of approximately 5,000 square feet at the corner of Herkimer Street and Van Sinderen Avenue. This action complements the city's planned adjacent Van Sinderen Plaza and the broader public realm investments in the Broadway Junction area. Together, these coordinated efforts will enhance the pedestrian connectivity, safety, and wayfinding between the development sites, the Broadway Junction subway station, the LIR station, and nearby employment and residential employment areas. In conclusion, the department recommends approval of the Herkimer-Williams rezoning application. The proposed actions align with more than a decade of planning for Broadway Junction area and support key objectives, including transit-oriented development at a major regional hub, the creation of approximately 1,000 new homes, and up to 1/3 permanently income-restricted pursuant to MIH, new commercial and light industrial spaces that will generate local jobs, publicly accessible open spaces and streetscape improvements, and coordinated investments alongside over the $500 million in publicly planned public infrastructure upgrades. Together, these actions will transform this area into a more comprehensive mixed-use neighborhood to serve both existing residents and the broader East New York community. That concludes my presentation.
Great. Thank you, Jesse, and thanks for all of your efforts on this very important proposal. Let me see if there are questions for you. Commissioner Goodrich?
Just a quick clarification: if the unit makeup, like, are they still 99 for 40% AMI and 99 for 80%, and then 49 for moderate income 100% AMI? Is that still the makeup?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you actually. Oh. I'm so sorry.
Basically, is the makeup of the apartments
Yes.
and the AMI and the racial equity report, is it still the same now? Because I know we had a meeting and there was some conversation about whether that would change, so I just want to clarify.
Yeah, so, I mean, as the application stands, right, they are proposing roughly the 1,000 units, and then the income restricted units will be pending on the MIH options ultimately approved. However, I think the applicant team has worked with, for the first building, right, building B, the one on the right in this diagram. They're working for the ELA, the extreme low and low affordability terms, and they've also committed to continue working with HPD on the future developments, right? So which would go past what is stated in the reports and current the proposal right now, right? This is just the MIH numbers that we have now, but the applicant has committed to doing more.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jesse. Madam Secretary, shall I recess our review session now?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, we're going to recess the review session, but don't go anywhere because we're going to pick it up in a moment. Now I would like to welcome you to the City Planning Commission's public meeting. We're going to get started. Today is November 17, 2025. Madam Secretary, please begin the meeting.
Good afternoon. This is the City Planning Commission's special public meeting held remotely through the NYC DCP website and in person in the CPC hearing room 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Monday, November 17, 2025. I will now call the roll. Chair Gorodnick.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Present.
Commissioner Thurlow.
Here.
Commissioner Crowell.
Present.
Commissioner Dweck.
Here.
Commissioner Gold is on Zoom.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich. Here. Commissioner Kermani.
Here.
Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner Marin is on Zoom.
Here.
Commissioner Osorio.
Here.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Here.
A quorum is present. The only item for the special public meeting today for the calendar is the report section on page 4. Borough Brooklyn, calendar numbers 1 through 6. Herkimer Williams, CD5, calendar number 1, C250285ZMK. Calendar number 2, N250284ZRK. Calendar number 3, C250288PCK. Calendar number 4, N250287ZSK. Calendar number 5, C250286ZSK has been withdrawn. Calendar number 6, C250286AZSK. In the matter of applications for zoning map and zoning text amendments, site selection, acquisition, and special permits concerning Herkimer Williams. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and for a favorable report as modified on calendar number 6, Chair Gorodnick.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
I appreciate all that the department has done and the applicant has done in terms of trying to arrive at a maximization of the affordable housing and of large family size units of housing within the project. We all know of the desperate need for family-sized, affordable housing. So I understand that the applicant is applying for ELA, and I understand that all of these programs have their rules, but I hope that that becomes a minimum, not the maximum that they can do. I also continue to be concerned about the open space, and I did read the letter from the applicant that was included in our package and that contained some of the other materials, contained the picture of sites that were purported to be working well underneath railroads. And if that is working well, then we need something else. Because one, those sites did not, only one of those pictures had any people in those parks. The one that was under the railroad in Queens shows that it is barren of people at all times in the night and day because the train is just too loud to be able to sit there and enjoy it. And it is also used next to it as some type of storage. So I continue to be concerned about the open space and whether it will be useful at all, given its nearness to the subway and to the trains and to the Long Island Railroad, although that's further away, and what we can do if we're going to take credit for open space to make the space actually usable. And I think that for the space that's partially underneath the train, we need to pressure the MTA to do something about sound deafening measures and to do something about the vibrations that are felt by people and buildings when the trains are running at their highest time per hour. I know this isn't the end of it, and I know, Jesse, that you'll continue to be involved and monitor these discussions, but I cannot impress enough how much I think the open space is lacking. Given that, I am not going to say no to the units of affordable housing because I fear the open space is unusable. And I continue to hope that we will make the housing even better for the people who will live there and have more attention to family-sized units. I'm voting aye and hope that the discussions that the developer is having with various branches of government will prove fruitful. I vote aye.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Well, my name wasn't called yet.
Yeah, she called you.
Oh, twice she called me?
I just called her.
No, just one. Oh, yeah. I'm on cue here. I got cues down. I know my cue. I really just want to acknowledge both the vision of this project and the work of the applicant, particularly with respect to the critical housing units being created by this project, particularly the configuration, so to speak, as referenced by Commissioner Benjamin. And I also want to acknowledge and thank them for addressing so many of the issues that were raised by the Commission during the public hearing, and happily vote aye. Thank you.
Commissioner Crowell.
Similarly, I would like to associate myself with Commissioner Cerullo's comments. I want to thank the department for their extensive work. On behalf of this project, I appreciated the in-depth tour that we were able to take of the area, and it is an incredibly complex location, but I think that many of the issues that arose along the course of review were addressed, and I do appreciate that more is to come. So I vote aye.
Commissioner DeWitt.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Gold.
I'd also like to thank the department for the work on this, and I vote yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Thank you to the department, not only for the work on this project, but also for meeting with a few of the commissioners who had some questions and concerns about the project. One of my main concerns is that the annual median income, the household income for this area is $46,000 and change, and most of the units, actually the majority of the units, will be starting at $56,000 and change. So, for example, for the low-income units, that starts at $56,000 and change all the way up to $80,000, and then we have the remaining, which would be moderate income, which starts at $113,000, and then we have a very low income, which is more in line with this area. I'm very glad to hear that the applicant is working with HPD, that is at the last stretch. I would like for when we vote on these projects for all of that to at least have been worked on before, so that we can vote on it without just sort of like, you know, this is what we're trying to do now at the last stretch. For example, the community board, I believe that this was a unanimous vote against this project, if I'm correct. All of that being said, I'm voting no because at this point we just have the applicant at the last minute working towards something, but what we're voting on right now and what we have before us right now is still the same thing. So my no vote is really to signal to the applicant, to the council member, to the stakeholders who will be determining this project here on out after it passes, that we would really like, and that the commission, that there are commissioners who would really like actual affordable housing that matches the neighborhood. And that is incredibly, and also the HPD, that is incredibly important to these types of projects, especially when they are I don't think that again, the median income for this area is $46,000. About 75%, or maybe it will be 60% of the units will start at $56,000, right? And so going, again, all the way up to six figures. And so if you live in this community, the affordable housing would not be for you, and that's a problem. And I think that it's something that we should address by voting no until when the project comes before us, there's at least been a little bit more progress than a year or two after the project started, the applicant then starting to talk to HPD to take it seriously. And after the community board votes no to take it seriously and then work with HPD. So I'm hoping that HPD and the Ella project, that all of that is approved after it moves from here, but my no vote is to signal that we don't approve these types of projects that are not actually affordable.
Commissioner Kermani.
Thank you. I'm voting yes, and also would like to thank the department for all of its work, and also thank my fellow commissioners for their questions. I was unable to attend the kind of the question session, but hearing from all of you and hearing about that session and reading more, I really appreciate the time and the questions that you all have. And this is a hard decision for me because I agree with and align myself with Commissioner Benjamin and Commissioner Goodrich. But I'm voting yes.
Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, I'll also be voting yes, and I do continue to have concerns about the open space and public realm kind of strategy on a project like this. It really is one of the more constrained sites in New York that I can think of in terms of not only the traffic volumes in Atlantic and East New York, but also the overhead subway infrastructure at Van Sinderen and Herkimer and Fulton. I can't think of too many sites that are harder to build housing around than this one, frankly, in the city of New York. And I think the key to making this work, especially for putting a lot of low-income families or New Yorkers here, is making sure the connections to the neighborhood actually function. So, in particular, through Fulton and Herkimer, underneath the extensive rail network there. So I do think there continues to be work with DOT and MTA and the applicant team to make sure that this feels like a safe and welcoming neighborhood and home for what we hope is thousands of New Yorkers. And so I hope they continue to do that work, and I vote yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Osorio.
I agree with the Brooklyn Borough President, as I find that the land use rationale is appropriate here. But I also want to take a minute to say that in the City Planning Commission voting on this project and voting specifically on changes to the underlying zoning, but a series of waivers, the Commission is providing this applicant with trust that I think deserves respect and that hopefully will be acknowledged as this proposal moves forward. I want to say that I really thank the Department of City Planning and the Brooklyn office for facilitating discussions with the applicant, particularly the efforts that have been raised today in facilitating and maximizing deeper affordability and diverse mix of units. I agree with Commissioner Goodrich on everything that she said. And I hope really that the proposal can address the remaining adverse impacts, just as we saw with air quality, including open space. But I want to vote yes with one condition. I recommend that the Department of City Planning adjust the report to include language requiring that the applicant builds the proposed industrial space reviewed by the City Planning Commission as part of whatever gets built here. because a different scenario without the proposed industrial jobs that have been promised would undermine the future of this community and this industrial business zone, particularly for working-class New Yorkers who rely on these jobs to afford housing here or anywhere else in the city. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Favorable reports have been adopted on calendar numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a favorable report as modified on calendar number 6.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody. Madam Secretary, is there any other business before the Commission for our special public meeting of today?
No, Chair Grodnick, there is no other business for the special public meeting.
Okay. With that in mind, this public meeting is adjourned. Welcome back, everybody, to the review session of November 17. We are on item number 2. Madam Secretary, if you could please introduce that item.
The second item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 10. Our presenter is Katie Martin.
Hello, Katie.
Hello. Make sure I remember how to use this.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair Grodnick and Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Hi. This is a private application from 9201 LLC for a zoning map amendment from a C8-2 zoning district to a C4-4D district within the Special Bay Ridge District, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a new 11-story mixed-use development, including approximately 110,700 square feet of residential space, or 97 dwelling units, 24 of which will be permanently income restricted, and approximately 18,500 square feet of commercial space and 52 subcellar and cellar level parking spaces, more than are required by zoning. The project's located at 9201 4th Avenue, between 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue in Bay Ridge, Community District 10 in Southern Brooklyn. It's located in City Council District 47 with Councilmember Justin Brannon. This is an aerial view looking north of the project area. The project area shown here in blue is coterminous with the proposed development site. It is frontage on 3 streets, 92nd Street, 4th Avenue, and 5th Avenue. 4th and 5th Avenues are mixed-use commercial and residential districts, corridors. There are several public transportation options for bus and subway service near the project area. The R subway line runs along 4th Avenue, and the nearest stop and terminus of the R line, Bay Ridge 95th Street, has an entrance on the subject block. The R provides local connections to Manhattan and Queens, as well as connections to express trains, the D and the N, as well as the LIRR Atlantic Terminal. There are several bus routes which operate in the area, including Select Bus Service S79, which provides service to Staten Island, and the B8, B63, S53, and S93. Fort Hamilton Triangle, shown here in green, just south of the project area, is a small plaza and open space in the neighborhood, and John J. Carty Park is a few blocks southeast of the project area. The project area is an approximately 18,000 square foot lot at the end of block 6108, with 92nd Street to the north, 4th Avenue to the west, and 5th Avenue to the east. 92nd Street's a narrow street, measuring 60 feet, while 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue are both wide streets at 100 feet and 75 feet, respectively. The project area consists of one lot. It's improved with a 7-story commercial office building that was built in 1965. Surrounding the project area, indicated here in green, are several community facilities, including PSIS 104 to the northeast, FDNY Engine 242 to the east, and District 20 Pre-K to the west. This is the land use map. Within the surrounding area, you can see there are a mix of commercial, residential, community facility, and utility transportation uses. North of the project area is a mix of 2 to 4-story mixed-use residential and commercial buildings, as well as an area that was subject to rezoning in 2021 at 9114 5th Avenue, and the first mapping of MIH in Community District 10. South of the project area, within the existing C8-2 zoning district, is a mix of 1- and 2-story commercial buildings and 3-story mixed-use commercial and residential buildings. 4th Avenue to the west of the project area has medium-density mixed-use commercial and residential buildings, including some 4 to 5 FAR multifamily elevator buildings. 5th Avenue to the east is primarily 2- and 3-story mixed-use commercial and residential buildings, as well as community facility buildings. The zoning districts mapped within the surrounding area include C82, R41, R5B, R6B, R6A, and R7A residential districts, and C23 and C24 commercial overlay districts. R4 and R5 are low to mid-density residential districts, while R6 and R7 contextual districts are mid-density residential districts. In 1978, the Special Bay Ridge District was created to preserve the neighborhood's low-rise character, to ensure contextual development, and to protect neighborhood-scale commercial areas along main corridors. The subject block was rezoned from C81 to C82 in the 2005 Bay Ridge rezoning. This shows the proposed development site in blue from its northwest corner. Here you can see the proposed development site is improved with a 7-story commercial office building. To the west is 4th Avenue, and in the background here you can see the Verrazano Bridge to Staten Island. This view is from the corner of 5th Avenue and 92nd Street, looking west toward the project area. On the right, you can see the subject area in the 2021 rezoning, which first maps MIH here in the community district. Here we're looking north along 5th Avenue and with the project area at the end of the block. This shows the commercial building just to the south of the project area. And then last, we're looking south here along 4th Avenue, showing the 6-story mixed-use buildings along 4th Avenue and the R subway line, which has its terminus on the subject block. The proposed actions would facilitate the development of an 11-story mixed-use commercial and residential building totaling 129,200 square feet. The proposed development would include 97 dwelling units, of which 24 would be permanently income restricted, as well as 18,500 square feet of commercial uses on the ground floor and mezzanine. The proposed development will have a base height of 86 feet and will rise to a max height of 130 feet. Parking would be provided in a subcellar and cellar, accessible via an existing curb cut on 5th Avenue. The applicant is currently proposing 52 accessory parking spaces, all of which are voluntary. To facilitate this project, the applicant seeks 2 actions, a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F. The zoning map amendment seeks to change the existing C82 zoning district along 4th and 5th Avenues to a C44D district. The project area is part of the Special Bay Ridge District. A C44D district is a commercial district with a residential equivalent of R8A that allows a maximum residential FAR of 7.2 with MIH, an FAR of 6.5 for community facility uses, and an FAR of 3.4 for commercial uses. After a base height of 105 feet, buildings can top out at 145 feet. The applicant also proposes a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to map MIH coterminous with the project area, creating permanently income restricted housing via MIH options 1 and 2. Option 1 requires 25% of residential floor area to be permanently income restricted at 60% of AMI, with option 2 requiring 30% at 80% AMI. The applicant has stated their intentions to select option 1. This application requires a racial equity report on housing and opportunity. The area median household income for the project area is $88,927, which is higher than the median income for Brooklyn and New York City. The applicant proposes to provide MIH units that meet 40%, 60%, and 80% AMI income band limits. In Figure 1, we can see that the population of the Bay Ridge and Diker Heights NTA is predominantly white, non-Hispanic, and Asian non-Hispanic, with the percentage of white non-Hispanic residents at 51%, which exceeds both the borough at 35% and the city at 31%. The Asian non-Hispanic population at 27% is higher than borough and citywide percentages. Figure 2 shows the percent change in race and ethnicity from 2010 to 2020. The largest growth was seen in the Asian non-Hispanic population, which has experienced a growth of 42% compared to an increase of 43% borough-wide and 34% citywide. The Black non-Hispanic and Hispanic populations have also seen large population increases in comparison with borough and citywide percentages. The white non-Hispanic population decreased 10% in this NTA compared to an increase of 8% borough-wide and no change citywide. Figure 14 shows the percent change in housing supply and production from 2010 to 2024. Between these years, housing units in this area increased by 1%, while population increased by 9%. In summary, this is a private application for a zoning map amendment from a C82 district within the Special Bay Ridge District to a C44D district and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to facilitate the development of a new 11-story mixed-use residential and commercial building with approximately 97 dwelling units, including 24 units of income-restricted housing. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Katie. Just one from me. I think you answered the parking question that I was going to ask when you said that they're voluntarily doing 52 parking spaces. So no parking spaces are required here. They're proposing 52.
Yes.
Second is on the Special Bay Ridge District.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a little bit about the purpose of the district.
Yeah.
Can you just speak for a minute about how we should think about the proposal here in the context of the existing special district?
That's a great question. So the Special Bay Ridge District was intentionally trying to maintain the major commercial corridors in Bay Ridge. And 4th Avenue especially and 5th Avenue, definitely in this area, are very prominent commercial corridors. So that was, I think the intention was to continue to have that commercial presence by mapping another commercial corridor that allows housing. Right now, C82 allows no housing to be developed here, but a C44D allows housing and residential mix. So it maintains that the commercial presence on the important commercial corridors, but also provides an opportunity to increase housing in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Commissioner Mann?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the zoning boundaries proposed. I know the back and forth usually is that this is the applicant's job, but there's a site just to the north, which is a gas station on 4th Avenue.
Yeah.
And then there's the site to the south, which I think is a gym.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if the department, had conversations with the applicant about extending the boundaries here to rationalize some of the zoning around the adjacent sites, not just the applicant-controlled site.
Yeah, no, again, great question. So we did discuss, the conversations early on were around the zoning boundary. This area between 4th and 5th Avenue, south of 92nd, is sometimes referred to as the Bay Ridge Triangle. It's a big chunk of, and also further north, but it's a big chunk of C82 here. So we talked with the applicant about potentially expanding the zoning boundary. However, we felt, and the applicant also felt like that this is a large lot, 18,000 square feet. It's a through lot, which generally can stand on its own in these rezoning types of proposals.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I know that's not going to be within scope to expand zoning boundaries. I guess, if we're saying loud and, over and over again that we need to build housing everywhere in the city, and Bay Ridge, as we've documented here, doesn't build much housing, right? And that there are vacant parking lots,
right,
or at least parking lots, maybe not vacant parking lots, and one-story commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And, across the street on 5th Avenue, there's also a large site there, too. Then I think, we have to, I think, also keep in mind we practice what we preach here,
right,
but understanding that development politics in Bay Ridge are not easy. So I was just curious about the boundaries here and how we landed here. But thanks for that clarity.
Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner. Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
This item is certified. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next.
The third item on our agenda is a certification of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 6. Our presenter is Griffin Mills.
Hi, Griffin.
Hello. Great. Good afternoon, Chair Grodnick and Commissioners. This is a certification presentation for 46 Nelson Street rezoning. This is a private application by 46 Nelson LLC proposing a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M12A R7A MX5 and M12A R6A MX5, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH, area with options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate a new 7-story mixed-use building with 108 residential units, 27 of which would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH, and 17,100 square feet of ground floor commercial. This project is located at 46 Nelson Street in the Red Hook neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 6. This is an aerial view looking northwest at the project area, which is highlighted in blue. The development site is highlighted in orange. The project area is located on Nelson Street, which is a 50-foot wide street, and Hicks Street, which is a 60-foot wide street. The project area is located immediately adjacent to the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. The Hamilton Avenue footbridge connecting Red Hook to Carroll Gardens is 1 block north from the project area. The project area is located a half-mile northwest from the Smith 9th F&G station and 3/4 of a mile southwest from the Carroll Street F&G subway station. The B57 and B61 bus lines both have stops within a 5-minute walk from the project area, which provides service throughout Brooklyn. The 29-building Red Hook NYCHA campus is located 2 blocks south from the project area, which is home to over 6,000 individuals. Admiral Triangle Park is located southeast across the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, and Coffee Park is located further west in Red Hook. The Southwest Brooklyn IBZ and Brooklyn Marine Terminal are located further west from the project area. As illustrated here, the land uses in the surrounding area include low-density industrial, manufacturing, warehouse spaces, multifamily walk-up and elevator residential buildings, public institutions, community facilities, and vacant lots. Immediately across from the development site is the Red Hook Neighborhood School, or PS 676, and the Summit Academy Charter School. There are numerous other schools located throughout Red Hook in the surrounding area. The project area is currently zoned M11. The M11 district extends 1 block south, as well as further to the north and west in Red Hook. South, west, and east from the project area is zoned R5, with some portions including C23 and C12 commercial overlays. Further northeast across the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway is R6B zoning. There's also R6 zoning further west. The project area is located within the boundaries of the 0.2% annual chance floodplain pursuant to the 2015 preliminary flood insurance rate maps. This is an aerial view looking northwest of the development site, which is highlighted in orange. The project area is highlighted in blue. The development site is currently improved with a 1-story pipe supply warehouse and its parking lot. Huntington Street consists of low-density auto-related and light industrial uses. The Hamilton Avenue footbridge connecting Red Hook to Carroll Gardens is located 1 block north, indicated on the map. This is a view looking southeast at the development site. The project area extends down Nelson Street. PS 676 is adjacent to the development site. This is a view looking west on Nelson Street, where the development site is on the left. The other buildings within the project area, seen on the map on the left, were constructed in 2009 and include a coffee roasting building and a record storage facility. This is a view located further east on Nelson Street, looking west of the development site. The proposed rezoning to an M1-2A R6A for this portion of Nelson Street would make the existing non-conforming residences along Nelson Street conforming. This is a view looking west on Huntington Street, where the development site is on the right. The proposed development is a new 7-story, 100,100 square foot mixed-use building. The development would rise to a height of 76 feet and contain 108 units, 27 of which would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH. There would be 42 parking spots and 54 bike spaces in the cellar. The ground floor of the building would contain 17,100 square feet of ground floor commercial, and the remaining 6 floors will be residential. The applicant intends to incorporate resiliency measures into the building. In the cellar, all utilities will be dry, flood-proofed to prevent water infiltration during flood events. The residential lobby would be wet, flood-proofed with flood vents constructed with flood damage-resistant materials capable of withstanding periodic inundation. To facilitate the proposed development, the applicant seeks a zoning map amendment from an M11 to an M12A R7A MX5, an M12A R6A MX5, and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing areas with options 1 and 2. The zoning map amendment seeks to change an existing M11 district to both an M12A R7A and M12A R6A. The M12A R7A district would be mapped to a depth of 100 feet from Hicks Street and is coterminous with the proposed development site. The M12A R6A district would be mapped along Nelson Street with a 70-foot offset from Henry Street to the east, with its depth to the center line of the block. This would make the existing non-conforming residences conforming along Nelson Street while keeping the corner auto-related lots on Henry Street in the current M11 zoning. M12A R6A districts can rise to a maximum height of 95 feet. The maximum residential FAR with MIH is 3.9. The maximum community facility, commercial, and manufacturing FAR are each 3. Parking is required for 25% of residential units in the outer transit zone. M12A R7A districts can rise to a maximum height of 115 feet. The maximum residential FAR with MIH is 5.01. The maximum community facility FAR is 4, and the maximum commercial and manufacturing FAR are each 3. Parking is required for 15% of the residential units in the outer transit zone. The proposed zoning text amendment to Appendix F would map an MIH areas with options 1 and 2 for an area coterminous with the project area. Option 1 requires 25% of the residential floor area to be income restricted for households on average making 60% area median income or lower. Option 2 requires 30% of the residential floor area to be income restricted for households on average making 80% AMI or lower. This application requires a racial equity report, which helps put the proposal into context with neighborhood-level socioeconomic data. The annual median household income for the project area is $149,646, which is more than the annual median household income in both Brooklyn and in New York City. The applicant has indicated that they intend to use MIH option 1, where 27 units would be income restricted for families with incomes averaging 40 to 80% AMI. As per the racial equity report, the population of Park Slope, Carroll Gardens, and Red Hook is 63% white non-Hispanic, 16% Hispanic Latino, 8% Asian non-Hispanic, and 7% Black non-Hispanic. The white non-Hispanic population is a significantly greater share of the area's population when compared to Brooklyn and NYC. From 2010 to 2020, the area saw a 9% increase in total population, which was on par with Brooklyn and New York City's trends. The Asian non-Hispanic population increased by 51% over this time, which outpaced Brooklyn and NYC trends. The Black non-Hispanic population decreased by 9%, which is similar to Brooklyn and New York City. The Hispanic Latino population decreased by 5%, while Brooklyn and New York City's Hispanic Latino population increased. The white non-Hispanic population increased by 6%, which is similar to Brooklyn's growth, but greater than New York City's. From 2010 to 2023, housing units in Park Slope, Carroll Gardens, and Red Hook increased by 10%, while the population increased by 9%. This growth in housing units was slightly less than Brooklyn and slightly greater than New York's. The growth in population was the same as Brooklyn's and slightly greater than the city's. In summary, this is a private application by 46 Nelson LLC proposing a zoning map amendment from M11 to an M12A R7A MX5 and M12A R6A MX5 and a zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area with options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate a new 7-story mixed-use building with 108 residential units, 27 of which would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH, and 17,100 square feet of ground floor commercial. This project is located at 46 Nelson Street in the Red Hook neighborhood of Brooklyn Community District 6. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Benjamin?
Hi, thank you very much for that presentation. And I do have a couple of questions. The first one is, right now, I believe there's a coffee roaster there.
Mm-hmm.
And where is that coffee roaster going?
The coffee roaster is in the building next door to the proposed development. It's not planning to move.
But number two, but for this applicant who wants to rezone this to residential, would we not be looking to increase the manufacturing density here? I know that there are a number of residential structures, but this particular location adjacent to the BQE as part of, has a number of manufacturing uses, both in the surrounding area, and looks like a very welcoming location for manufacturing. Do we really believe that residential, even, we know he wants to do residential, he doesn't want to do we really believe that's the highest and best use for a site that really could be a good manufacturing site in Red Hook?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think in some of the initial conversations, that's why an MX pairing was picked, so we could include manufacturing as well as residential.
Although he doesn't propose any residential, not even on the ground floor, any manufacturing, not even on the ground floor.
Yeah, they haven't indicated exactly what, but they've indicated commercial.
The floor-to-floors don't look like they could be manufacturing if that's a realistic rendering. I mean, in other places, we've been encouraging manufacturing on the ground floor. So why in this rezoning from manufacturing, why are we not encouraging at least some manufacturing activity, even if it's just the ground floor?
Thank you. Hi, Emily Bachman, Brooklyn office. I'm going to go back to the aerial. Mm-hmm. I think this is the best one. Yeah. So a couple things to note here, actually a little more zoomed out. In this slide, you can see the IBZ, the industrial business zone, outlined in purple, and you can see that the project area is not within the IBZ. So it is in an M11 zone, but it's not an IBZ. It's not an area that the city has identified over the last 20 years as a place where we want to necessarily encourage industrial over other types of development. Similarly, in the industrial plan, this is not identified as a primary or secondary area. Looking just at this site, it's across the street from a prominent public school. It's on a block front that, even though it is close to the BQE, it's set away from it by city-owned open space. And it shares a block front that is primarily residential and has been since before 1961. So what
then why not just rezone it residentially?
Well, this application would allow for residential use as well as the continuation of existing non-residential uses, which this is a very mixed use. Red Hook in general is a very mixed use neighborhood. It's a very mixed use portion of Red Hook. Part of the thinking there was not wanting to displace the coffee roaster, which is a pretty recent investment and an active business, and to create long-term flexibility for that type of use to be allowed within the project area.
I guess my problem is just, I think we're speaking with two voices. On the one hand, we have industrial policies. We've been encouraging other places that are less manufacturing than this is, for instance, in AMUP. We've been encouraging ground floor manufacturing uses. And here, in a mixed-use neighborhood, this block has both. We seem to be saying, well, not so much. I'm just sure. I've always had a problem with the mixed-use districts because it seems to me they're not sustainable. One or the other use will dominate. And generally, it's residential because you can get a lot more money for residential space than for manufacturing. So when we create these mixed-use districts, I'm always looking at whether there's really an expectation that a manufacturer will come in.
Right. Yeah. I think a couple of things to say there. One consideration also in Red Hook is the flood zone. So we're not going to see residential units on the ground floor. So it's going to be non-residential, and the mixed-use district allows flexibility for that to be community serving commercial or light industrial that can be co-sited with residential. So I think as opposed to AMUP where it's a neighborhood plan, we've got incentives built in, we're thinking holistically about the whole neighborhood and how to encourage and require industrial in places where it's appropriate. Here, this is a private application where we're trying to maintain flexibility, and definitely hear you that the market is going to decide what the market decides. That can change over time. We have seen successful mixed-use districts in Red Hook that were established as early as 2006, closer to the waterfront at the foot of Van Brunt Street. So there is a precedent for light manufacturing to continue to exist in areas that are zoned MX in this neighborhood. And again, the zoning district proposed, we can definitely have the applicant speak more to it as well, and we can follow up post-hearing. But the zoning district proposed the motivation for the MX was really about not displacing existing non-residential businesses and allowing a continuation of that mixed-use character, not necessarily requiring it.
Okay, I think you know where I'm going.
Yes, yeah.
But
yeah, I appreciate the questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Sorio and Vice Chair Knuckles.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. I have a similar question to Commissioner Benjamin, but I also just wanted to start quickly with two suggestions. One is, it would be great if we can get an update from DOT on the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway plan and what's the status and what are the implications for some of these sites. Just help us understand, what's the long-term picture here for this infrastructure item, and then kind of really get to understand the land use proposal in that context. So if we can get that would be great. Thank you for acknowledging the location of the property within the preliminary 500-year floodplain. But if you look at the projected 2020, which sounds like into the future, but it's really already here, projections, you will see that this is already within the 100-year floodplain. And so I'm wondering, you did mention a couple important provisions in there, but I didn't see really a commitment to really building adaptation to what would be required otherwise. And so I'm wondering if next time we see this, we can kind of see a more thorough understanding of what is being proposed to support potential inundation here at that level. In addition to inundation, I would highly encourage you to think about storm surge as well. So those are more like when we see it again. But what I really wanted to get into is kind of like building on Commissioner Benjamin's question. And I think the Commissioner Benjamin was referring to the manufacturing equipment supplier building that currently exists in the development side. So maybe starting there, what is the plan for that business?
Yeah, when I spoke to the applicant about this, they said that the owner intended to offer other properties throughout the area for that current business. It
will be really important for me as well to understand what's the plan here because, I appreciate the effort to increase housing here. We'll discuss the affordability level later, but But I'm just trying to understand what is the public benefit. I do have to say that it's a little disheartening to hear. So we're proposing MX, but we really don't mean industrial. And I don't think that the response, you know, of, oh, well, it's just residential suffices here. Because, again, these are important jobs. And if we are really planning for working class New Yorkers to be able to afford housing, we need to expand these jobs. And I also am very interested in understanding the relation with the industrial plan. But my understanding is that that's still in progress. Some of the research is still being completed. And if we're going to refer to that as city policy, we need to take into account the response that, you know, at least I've heard in terms of how some of the primary and secondary areas are being received, or the proposed primary and secondary areas are being received. Because yes, this is outside of the secondary, but it's really across the street. And we've seen industrial development proposals in this neighborhood in the past, which, so like, I want to acknowledge kind of like the response from the department in terms of like, we're trying to keep all of options available, but we also need to be very intentional in terms of what do we think is the right move here. So I just want to encourage you to think about maybe light industrial on first floor. I don't think that it's incompatible. That's been the entire rationale for some of these MX opportunities. It could be possible, and so it would be great that when we see it again, we could perhaps see that scenario a little bit more fleshed out rather than sort of like canceled from the get-go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I can talk to the applicant about that and have him prepare.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner. Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, the IBZ is in that purple area that encompasses what, the Brooklyn Marine Terminal?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of any commercial industrial development that's happened outside of the IBZ recently?
Didn't we do one a few weeks ago?
We can get back to you on that one. There's also a portion of the IBZ that's south of this development site and out of frame, kind of wraps around the coastal edge of Red Hook. So yeah, we can get back to you on recent investment recent non-residential investment outside of the IBZ in the surrounding area, for sure. And also just want to acknowledge, as Commissioner Osorio said, that the industrial plan is a draft. And I did not mean to refer to it as anything more than a draft. Just wanted to portray that this site, this proposal is treated consistently between that draft and this proposal. And absolutely, both that draft and this proposal are subject to public review. Well, that draft is not even a proposed zoning change. So it's subject to change, and this is subject to change as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Vice Chairman, are there other questions? Okay, thank you very much. This item is certified.
Thank you.
And we will move on to the next item for today. Madam Secretary.
The fourth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 14. Our presenter is Elike Ade.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon.
And Commissioners. This is a proposal by private applicant 1410 Beach Channel Drive, LLC, requesting two actions. A zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from an R5 zoning district to R6A/C24 and R6A zoning districts, and a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH area. The project is located at 1410 Beach Channel Drive in the Far Rockaway neighborhood in Community District 14. It was certified by the Commission on July 28, 2025, and referred to the Community Board, Borough President, and City Council. The proposed actions would facilitate a new 7-story plus cellar mixed-use residential, commercial, and community facility building. The proposed development would have a total floor area of approximately 111,000 square feet and will have a total of 118 residential units. 30 units would be permanently income restricted pursuant to MIH Option 1. The cellar and ground floor levels would contain an approximate total of 81 parking spaces, and there would be recreational space on the roof. It is partially in the 100-year and 500-year floodplains, so it is subject to WRP and Appendix C of the Building Code. The resiliency measures include elevation of all habitable spaces above the design flood elevation, dry flood proofing of the ground floor, and the installation of floodgates. So to facilitate this development, the applicant proposes 2 actions: a zoning map amendment to change from the existing R5 to R6A and R6A/C24 zoning district, as indicated by the blue line on the image to the right. The applicant is also proposing a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2 and is seeking MIH option 1. Option 1 requires that 25% of the floor area be provided to households at an average income of 60% AMI, and option 2 requires that 30% of the residential floor area be set aside for income restricted housing units for households at an average income of 80% AMI. So on October 14th, 2025, the Community Board 14 held a public hearing, and on the same day voted unfavorable with 24 in favor of the recommendation, 2 against, and 3 abstaining. The recommendation was submitted on October 15th, 2025. The Community Board contends that existing infrastructure is inadequate to support increasing density to the area, which had recently seen increases in large-scale developments. It also expressed concerns about affordability levels and the availability of units with 2 or more bedroom units. On October 30th, the Queensborough President held a public hearing, and on November 5th, 2025, submitted a conditional favorable recommendation. The Borough President stated the following: there should be a minimum 30% goal to include MWBE firms, hiring of local residents, and working with locally based organizations and community groups for outreach and job fairs when hiring and contracting for this project. Progress towards quarterly reporting of hiring initiatives be made to the BP and Council until that goal is reached, and they also recommended maximizing provision of 2 or more bedroom units and the incorporation of green infrastructure elements. So in summary, the applicant is seeking 2 actions: a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from an R5 to an R6A with a C24 overlay, and R6A to facilitate the proposed development. The applicant also seeks a text amendment to establish an MIH area. The proposed development would rise to a height of 77 feet and would include ground floor community facility, commercial space, and would contain approximately 118 dwelling units. That concludes my presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. We will pick this one up for public hearing on Wednesday, but let me see if there's any questions for you now.
Just one quick one.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Yeah, can you make sure the applicant gives us the apartment size distribution and of both the market and the affordable?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 5, please.
Okay. The 5th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendments and a cancellation of a restrictive declaration in Queens Community District 10. Our presenter is Mia Albert.
Hi, Mia.
Good afternoon, Chair Grodnick, Commissioners. Just wait a moment for the presentation to come up. Great. This is the application for 7808 Linden Boulevard, which certified before this commission on July 14th and is back for a pre-hearing. The project is located in Lindenwood, Queens, CD10. Since certification, the applicant has updated their illustrative proposed development, which now includes a 6- and 12-story, approximately 224,000 square foot mixed-use building, comprised of approximately 216,000 square feet of residential and approximately 7,758 square feet of community facility. There is 267 dwelling units proposed, between 64 and 80 of which would be permanently income restricted through MIH, as well as 86 parking spaces. At certification, the Commission asked questions about the proposed development and its effects on neighborhood flooding, so I'd just like to follow up on that and note first that the application lies within the 0.2% annual chance floodplain and is therefore not required to follow measures for flood-resistant construction. However, the applicant is proactively choosing to do so in anticipation of future flood risks. Next, the project would be subject to DEP's Unified Stormwater Rule, which aims to reduce runoff and the effects of combined sewer overflow from new developments by implementing stormwater retention and detention requirements, as well as by encouraging the use of green infrastructure. Finally, since this project certified before the Commission in July, HPD released a more detailed description of the proposed Jewel Streets neighborhood plan. In October, they released an official plan for the neighborhood, which included drainage solutions, street raisings, and sewage infrastructure upgrades in the neighborhood. In this plan, they outlined that critical steps on the path to public review for the plan would occur in late 2025 and into 2026. To facilitate this development, the applicant proposes a zoning map change from an R4 C12 to an R7D C24 and R6A districts, a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2, as well as a legal document to cancel an existing restrictive declaration against the property. On October 6th, Queens Community Board 10 voted 31 in favor and 1 against for a recommendation of approval with conditions for the project. Their first condition outlines the new design presented, including 2 buildings instead of 1 of which would be entirely workforce housing and the other of which would be senior housing. This condition also concerns the bulk of these buildings. Next, the board's condition is about what will tenant the community facility space on the ground floor of the proposal. And finally, the board requests the implementation of a deed restriction to ensure the height of the building fronting 79th Street does not extend above 6 stories. On October 16th, the Queens Borough President held a hearing for this application and submitted a recommendation in approval with conditions. First, the Borough President outlined hiring goals for the construction of the project, including the use of M/WBE firms.
We need to pause. So sorry, we're going to report that our YouTube audio just dropped right now. Apologies. Yeah, I just
Okay, we're just going to take a quick break.
Just to check. Sure.
Sorry, Mia.
Could be the same issue as earlier. Apologies.
Should I start over at the beginning of this slide?
Okay. I hear audio's good.
Okay.
Audio.
Okay, we're back.
Thank you.
I'll start this slide from the beginning.
Okay,
for
great.
continuity. On October 16th, the Queens Borough President held a hearing for this application and submitted a recommendation in approval with conditions. First, the Borough President outlined hiring goals for the construction of the project, including the use of M/WBE firms, hiring of local residents, working with community organizations, et cetera. Finally, the Borough President encouraged the applicant team to memorialize their commitments to Community Board 10 and circulate those commitments to the board, Borough President, and council member. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Well, we're going to see this one on Wednesday for the public hearing, but for now, any questions from Mia? Commissioner Benjamin.
Yes, quick question about the location and 78th Street, which may be improved, but does not appear that way from the photographs.
See. This photograph?
No, the photographs of the existing conditions that were in.
Oh, yes, that were in the certification presentation.
Yeah, it seems like there's a significant grade change.
Yes.
From the property down to 78th Street and from Linden Boulevard to the block behind it, and I'm not remembering what the name of that street is. It looks like in the restrictive declaration, 79th Street was addressed, and the applicant was required to do work on 79th Street, but not on 78th Street, which is also adjacent to the property. And I'm wondering, I mean, on this rendering, you show what looks like a very nice beginning of the block when no one's required to do anything. I know for a fact that it frequently floods. I'm not sure there are sewers on 78th Street. So what was the thinking about this project and 78th Street?
Okay, so I think you were referring to the community board wanting or having conditions about 79th Street and the height restriction, correct?
Well, the 79th Street was from the old restrictive deck when this development occurred and the Walmart's was built. We're lifting that restriction.
Right. So now the community board is asking for a new restrictive declaration.
Okay.
They just want to dictate that the height on 79th Street stays no more than 6 stories because of that single-family zoning.
Right. But I'm wondering why we're not doing anything, the DOT, the applicant, why we're not asking for something to be done about 78th Street, because it is not really a passable street for much of the year.
Right. So I think that's where the Jewel Streets neighborhood plan comes into play here. In the plan that they released in October, they have said that they're planning on doing street raisings as well as sewage infrastructure improvements in this part of the neighborhood specifically.
Right, and we saw that a few months ago, but how is the timing on those working? I mean, it is really a steep grade down from the Walmart, the development site, down to 78th Street.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't think that 78th Street has sewers.
So I can speak to HPD's schedule that they've released so far. The applicant can speak more to the construction of this project on Wednesday. But HPD outlined a schedule for next steps in the plan. So in December 2025, they plan to begin implementation of the neighborhood plan through scoping for environmental review. Spring of 2026, they plan to begin the public review process for the zoning and infrastructure plans. And then winter 2026 and spring of 2027, they are planning to begin public engagement for the future RFP of the city-owned sites. But throughout this process, DCP and HPD are working closely together to make sure that private applications in the neighborhood plan are working alongside of each other. Does that answer your question?
Not really, because it doesn't seem like there's coordination. It looks like this plan would happen. There would be this, because what is the proposed development schedule for this plan? I mean, the infrastructure that you're talking about is years off, whereas this plan, this proposal would be happening sooner. And one side of the residential building would be on this cliff.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Teal Dulles. I'm the Eastern Queens team lead, so I've also been helping with this application. And so I think you're calling out a lot of really important points, Commissioner Benjamin. There is a pretty big drop on Sapphire 78th Street from about a 13-foot elevation down to 4 feet. And so depending on the timeline, we can definitely pass along these questions and comments to the applicant so they can speak to their own timeline of when they plan to do construction. And then for the city timeline for the infrastructure, that is expected to be a longer term timeline. So what the applicant has been proposing is to have parking on the cellar and part of the ground floor. And then they would have access to that parking from both 79th Street and 78th Street. and they're raising the commercial area as well as the habitable spaces above the design flood elevation. We have been facilitating some communication between HPD and this applicant so that we are all thinking about the future together. And the applicant has indicated that they are more than willing to work with the city when the street raising does come into fruition so that one of those entrances might not be there anymore to the parking.
Well, how would the entrance to the parking work now on 78th? They would just drive up and over?
They would be on separate floors because that grade change is so significant. They can actually have separate floors, like a lower cellar. I don't remember exactly what level each floor is at, but the parking entrance on 78th Street would be one floor lower than the parking entrance on 79th Street. So they may need some ramps to make that actually work in the building so that there's enough.
They need to do something because it's unimproved to keep the property where it is right now.
Correct. They will have to go through with their builder's pavers plan, which requires them to rebuild the sidewalk in about half of the street. And that's something that they'll have to work out with DOB. And in that case, like based on what we've seen elsewhere in this area, we would expect some kind of interim condition for a period of time until the different pieces can come together with the street raising and the development.
I mean, you're right. I did raise many of these issues several months ago when we saw another project in this area. But in terms of the infrastructure also, can we talk to DEP about what their plan involves and when they might have some infrastructure? Because I know 78th Street floods significantly, and it does not appear when you drive it to be paved. It appears to be, maybe it was once, but it appears to be a dirt-like place with untamed grown vegetation on the sides up the slopes. So I'm not sure where the pavement that they might be required to do would even go. So if you could get more information specifically from DEP about their plans, and then perhaps about what the pavement plan might look like.
Sure, we'll definitely pass along your comment about the pavement plan to the applicant, and then we can see if we can get in touch with DEP. But as far as that goes, like we can definitely look through the Jewel Streets plan, and we do know that timeline is quite a bit longer.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. My first question was already asked by Commissioner Benjamin, but I just had a quick clarification point. So in the change, the total number of dwelling units came down from 270 to 267, right? That's the correct?
Correct.
Okay,
it was
cool.
273, I believe.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, thanks, Mia. We'll pick this one up on Wednesday. Okay, let's move on to item 6.
The sixth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of the zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 11. Our presenter is Joy Chen.
Hello, Joy.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item, 21714 24th Avenue rezoning, was certified on June 30th and is back for pre-hearing review. It's located in the Bay Terrace neighborhood of Bayside in Queens Community District 11. The proposed development is for an 8-story building with the first 2 stories being for senior housing and a senior long-term care facility with 65 senior units. There would be a total of 55 income-restricted units and a total of 183 residential units. You can also see in terms of the site plan, it's a U-shaped building located at the end of 24th Avenue and Little Neck Boulevard. the proposed zoning action is for rezoning from an existing R12 district, which is a single-family detached only zoning district, to a multifamily R6A zoning district to facilitate this new development. It would also map a zoning text amendment to map mandatory inclusionary housing. This map shows the project's location in the surrounding area in Bayside and Bay Terrace. You'll notice to the east is the Cross Island Parkway, which is a major highway. There is parkland and an embankment that separates this area from the building, the proposed development on the lower left-hand corner of your screen. You'll also see some of the existing higher density buildings that are in the R5 district, and the R5 abuts the R12 district here. On October 6th, Queens Community Board 11 held their public hearing, and they voted to disapprove the application, 31 against, 1 in favor, 1 abstaining. Some of their concerns that they cited had to do with the scale and density, the location in the floodplain, as well as traffic concerns. On October 16th, the Queensborough president held her public hearing on this item and voted to recommended approval with conditions, and her conditions are indicated on the left-hand side of your screen, about hiring MWBE firms, as well as incorporating storm resiliency and flood resiliency measures in the site plan and in the building. That concludes my presentation. The applicant will be here on Wednesday for the public hearing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Starting with the Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. Joy, just refresh my recollection. What was on this, what's currently on the site?
Yeah, so this was the location of the country club. I think it was in bankruptcy proceedings, but I don't think anything is located right now, or nothing active is happening on the site. But it was the former site of a country club.
Okay, and the 25% affordable units would be in what MIH category?
I believe it's option 2 that they selected for the 55 units that would be permanently income restricted.
Okay. Do you know what the income, I can ask this, I guess on Wednesday, but the income ranges for,
I'm not sure, but the applicant will have that information.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Commissioner Benjamin.
Hi, Joy. Thanks for the presentation. I'm looking to find out more about the senior part of the housing. You know, is that included in the unit count?
No, so the first 2 floors of senior housing would be considered a community facility, as a senior care facility. So they're counting that as a separate, you know, they're counting 65 separate senior long-term care units set aside for seniors, and then the total building would have, from floors 3 to 8 would have a total of 183 units.
So is this a care facility, or is this a residence for seniors in the community facility sense? Are they getting nursing care or anything of that nature in this building?
Yes, I believe that's the plan, is for to have amenities and support services for seniors, as well as, I'm not sure the exact type of senior service care that they are planning to provide, but they can share more details about the programming, as well as how the senior long-term units would be laid out and would work.
And who would, I mean, I guess the question is this going to be a SNF, skilled nursing facility, or is this just a senior residence with some ancillary services, like a 202 building. The other part of it is, and who is this affordable? I'm assuming that since these units are community facility and not dwelling units under zoning, what is the income requirements for the seniors?
Okay, I will definitely, I don't have the answer to that right now, but I'll relay that to the applicant and make sure they're prepared to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick comment. If you can, in addition to that, make sure that they are prepared to discuss the flood resiliency measures. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We'll pick this one up on Wednesday for the public hearing.
Thank you.
Joy. Okay, let's move on to the next Queens item.
The seventh item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning tax amendments in Queens Community District 2. Our presenter is Fegula Leshner.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, Commissioners. Good afternoon.
You don't want us to look at the clock?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is 6312 Broadway rezoning, which was certified June 30th and is now back for pre-hearing. This is a private application by Broadway Realty LLC in the Woodside neighborhood of Queens Community District 2 to facilitate the development of a new 9-story mixed-use residential and commercial building with 55,500 total square feet, containing 9,200 square feet of ground floor commercial and 67 total dwelling units, including 22 income restricted units. The proposed development includes no parking, as this is within the inner transit zone. The applicant seeks a zoning map amendment from the existing R5 C22 zoning districts to an R7A C24 and R5 C24 zoning district, and a zoning text amendment to map MIH options 1 and 2 coterminous with the project area. The application was certified by the Commission on June 30th. On October 9th, 2025, Community Board 2 voted 29 in favor, 1 opposed, and no abstentions to pass a resolution to recommend the application for approval with the following conditions. The inclusion of MIH options 1, 2, and 3 to allow deeper affordable options in the future, the usage of prevailing wage in construction, the addition of street greenery through street planters and having them reflected accurately in the site plan, and increasing the proportion of 2- and 3-bedroom units. They additionally asked for the designation of an appropriately sized loading area and trash receptacle area in the project. On October 16th, the Queensborough President held a hearing on this application and submitted a recommendation of approval with conditions. The conditions pertained to MWB and local hiring goals, MIH options. The Borough President recommended MIH option 1 to maximize the deepest affordability and most residential floor area, and adhering to Community Board 2's conditions to the best of their ability. The applicant rep will be here on Wednesday to address any and all questions raised by the Commission. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we'll see you on Wednesday. Thank you. Number 8, please.
Okay. The 8th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of a zoning map amendment in Queens Community District 13. Our presenter is Joy Chen.
Hello again, Joy.
Hello again. I'm back here for a private application 247-56 90th Avenue rezoning. This is a private application in the Belrose neighborhood of Community District 13, Queens. It was certified on July 14th. This is a proposed development that would be facilitated by the zoning change, a new 2-family building. And the applicant is proposing a rezoning from an existing R41 district to an R4 district on 90th Avenue near Commonwealth Boulevard to facilitate this development. They have 2 lots. The applicant owns lot 30 as well as lot 31, and under the R41 zoning, they cannot build their 2-family, 2-story building. They are proposing to rezone the existing R41 district to an R4 district. The R4 district is a multifamily district, which allows all housing types, including small apartments and units that are greater than 2 units. And it would also help regularize the zoning here and get rid of a split lot zoning condition. Queens Community Board 13 actually did not have their public hearing yet. They scheduled their public hearing 3 days before Thanksgiving on November 24th. So I believe they will be submitting a recommendation after it. But at at their Land Use and Zoning Committee meeting, they had a favorable reaction to they had a favorable recommendation then. The Queensborough president had their public hearing on October 16th and recommended submitted a favorable recommendation with no conditions. And the applicants will be making a virtual presentation on Wednesday. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll see them Wednesday. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joy. The ninth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of site selection and acquisitions in Brooklyn Community District 7. Our presenter is Juki Sai. And I'll just note on this one, Commissioners Osorio and Commissioners Goodridge are recused.
Okay, no problem. Let's go to Juki. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, good afternoon. That's right.
This is an application by Parks and DCAS for an acquisition, and it's just an acquisition, of a privately owned parcel, Block 5267, Lot 19, for continued use as part of Prospect Farm Community Garden in Windsor Terrace, Community District 7, Brooklyn. This application certified June 30th, 2025. Its public hearing is this Wednesday, November 17th. The proposed action is the acquisition of property by the city for Block 5267, Lot 19. The proposed actions would facilitate the continued use of Block 5267, Lot 19 by the Prospect Farm Community Garden. On September 17th, 2025, Community Board 7 held a public hearing and on that same date voted to approve the application with conditions. I'm going to read that condition verbatim. CB7 also calls on the Department of Transportation to transfer their adjoining lots to the Department of Parks and Recreation. On October 14th, 2025, the Borough President submitted a recommendation to approve the application without conditions. I will note that at the time of certification, the Commission asked some questions about the rationale for the acquisition, the negotiation process, and the nearby DOT Steely Street Bridge project. I have asked the applicant team to be ready to reply at the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Juki. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. So Juki, if approved, would this parcel then become parkland?
I believe so, yes. It would be property of Parks, and I believe it does become parkland. But I want to double check with that, and I'll make sure Parks speaks to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Juki. We will see this one Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay. Items 10 through 13 on our agenda are pre-hearing reviews of UDAP designations, project approvals, and dispositions of city-owned properties in Brooklyn Community Districts 3, 5, 16, and 17. Our presenter is Veronica Brown.
Hello, Veronica.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a presentation covering 4 separate applications by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, HPD, for the designation of Urban Development Action Area projects, or UDAP. The applications were certified on July 28th. These UDAP designations will result in 8 scattered site income-restricted homeownership buildings to be developed by Habitat for Humanity. Together, the 8 developments would produce a total of 96 income-restricted homeownership units. The sites are in 4 different community districts, Brooklyn CDs 3, 5, 16, and 17. I will briefly summarize the proposed developments in each application and the recommendations by the respective community boards and the Brooklyn Borough President. So for the application in Community District 3, 2 developments are proposed. Site A, 908 to 910 Madison Street, would be a 4-story, 14-unit residential building built under the existing R6B zoning. Site B, 1901 to 1903 Atlantic Avenue, would be a 7-story, 20-unit residential building built under the existing M11 R7D zoning. Brooklyn Community Board 3 did not submit a vote on this application. On November 3rd, 2025, the Brooklyn Borough President issued a favorable recommendation. For the application in Community District 5, 2 buildings are proposed. Site C, 881 to 885 New Jersey Avenue, would be a 4-story, 8-unit residential building built under the existing R5 zoning. Site D, 650 Glenmore Avenue, would be a 3-story, 6-unit residential building built under the existing R5B zoning. On September 24th, 2025, Brooklyn Community Board 5 voted 38 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 abstentions for a conditional favorable recommendation. The conditions included changes to equity, the building's reserves, and the allowable resale value of the units. The board also recommended insurance assistance for flood insurance. On November 3rd, 2025, the Brooklyn Borough President issued a favorable recommendation. For the application in Community District 16, 3 developments are proposed. Site E, 1794 to 1796 St. John's Place, would be a 6-story, 12-unit residential building built under the existing R6 zoning. Site F, 85 to 87 Legion Street, would also be a 6-story, 12-unit residential building built under the existing R6 zoning. And Site G, 250 to 254 Herzl Street, would also be a 6-story, 12-unit residential building built under the existing R6 zoning. On September 23rd, 2025, Brooklyn Community Board 16 voted 11 in favor, 16 opposed, and 0 abstentions for an unfavorable recommendation. They included concerns about affordability, unit size, and building scale. On November 3rd, 2025, the Brooklyn Borough President issued a favorable recommendation. Finally, for the application in Community District 17, 1 building is proposed. Site H, 395 to 397 East 94th Street, would be a 6-story, 12-unit residential building built under the existing R6 zoning. On September 17th, 2025, Brooklyn Community Board 17 voted 16 in favor, 2 opposed, and 6 abstentions for a conditional favorable recommendation. The board's condition was that CB17 have a permanent seat on the board governing the facilities, as well as a seat on the advisory board that oversees the construction phase. On November 3rd, 2025, the Brooklyn Borough President issued a favorable recommendation. So just to recap those votes, Community Board 3 did not issue a recommendation. Community Board 5 issued a conditional favorable recommendation. Community Board 16 issued an unfavorable recommendation, and Community Board 17 issued a conditional favorable recommendation. The Borough President issued a favorable recommendation on all 4 applications. So in summary, these are 4 separate applications for the UDOT designation of 8 sites across 4 community districts, which would facilitate a total of 96 affordable homeownership units. I'll now take any questions.
Great. Thanks, Veronica.
No problem.
Okay. We'll pick this one up on Wednesday. Thank you.
Okay. The 14th item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of zoning map and zoning text amendments, site selection and acquisition, a disposition of city-owned property, and an urban renewal plan amendment in Brooklyn Community District 2. Our presenter is Amrita Mahesh.
Hi there, Amrita.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Waiting for the slides to load up. The New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, together with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services and the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, are seeking various land use actions to facilitate the development of a 72-story mixed-use building containing approximately 1,263 apartments, of which 325 to 379 would be income restricted pursuant to MIH, and 141,000 square feet of non-residential space and approximately 4,700 square feet of public open space. This application was certified on August 11th. As the Commission may recall, the proposed development is located on a city-owned site in the downtown Brooklyn neighborhood of Community District 2 in Brooklyn. HPD proposes a zoning map amendment, a zoning text amendment, and an amendment to the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan. DCAS and HPD seek disposition approval of city-owned property. DCAS and DOHMH seek combined site selection and acquisition approval, and a chairperson certification for transit volumes is also being sought. The project area is located along a segment of Flatbush Avenue, which has experienced significant growth since the passage of the Downtown Brooklyn Plan, and it is a full block site, a 49,000 square foot site. The site is currently mapped with a high-density C6-4 commercial district and is located within the special Downtown Brooklyn district. As the Commission may recall, the project area is currently improved with a 7-story, approximately 307,000 square foot commercial building constructed in 1974, and this existing building is proposed to be adaptively reused. The proposed development is a 72-story, 1 million square foot mixed-use development, as mentioned previously, and roughly 66,000 square feet of space on the podium is proposed to be retail, and approximately 75,000 square feet is proposed to be commercial office or community facility uses, and the non-residential space is currently contemplated to be occupied by a DOHMH facility. An MTA easement extends diagonally across the southern portion of the project area, portions south of the dashed lines shown here, and this easement restricts development where the MTA subway tunnels are located. The proposed site plan includes active retail uses along multiple frontages. The residential lobby would have frontage on DeKalb Avenue, while the commercial lobby would be located directly east of the DeKalb Avenue subway entrance. And similar to the existing conditions, the loading berths will remain located along the Hudson Avenue frontage. The partial demolition of the building base will also facilitate the creation of an expanded public realm with a 4,700 square foot plaza at the prolongation of Fulton Mall. The siting of the proposed tower is largely due to the existing subway infrastructure beneath the project site, and the redevelopment would include a new L-shaped tower ranging from 65 to 72 stories over the repurposed podium. This is an illustrative view of the proposed development at DeKalb Avenue and Flatbush Avenue. The circulation space adjacent to the subway station entrance would enhance the vertical clearance of the overhang, and it would be made more generous. This is a view along the Flatbush Avenue frontage. The building base is expected to continue to have a strong non-residential presence. And this is a view of the proposed development along the Fulton Street frontage, and the existing open area will be expanded to create a plaza with seating, landscaping, and space for a food truck. The applicant is proposing to rezone the project area from a C6-4 district to a newly created C6-12 zoning district, as further modified by the proposed zoning text amendment. The applicant is seeking amendments to the special Downtown Brooklyn District's floor area, bulk, and mandatory district plan elements to facilitate the proposed development. The text amendment proposes to create a new defined term, large qualifying site, and on large qualifying sites, the C6-12 district, as modified by the special district, would permit a maximum FAR of 19 for residential, 15 for commercial and community facility, and a total maximum of FAR of 23. The applicant is seeking to amend the street wall location provisions if publicly accessible open space is provided, and they are also proposing to modify setback requirements for large qualifying sites that have below-grade transit infrastructure. A zoning text amendment is proposed to establish an MIH area. The applicant is proposing to map options 1 and 2, and they intend to utilize option 1. HPD and DCAS are seeking a disposition action to allow Brooklyn Block 2093 Lot 1 to be conveyed to a sponsor selected by HPD. DCAS and DOHMH are seeking site selection and acquisition to facilitate the location of a potential clinic and office space for DOHMH. And as noted earlier, the project area would be disposed to a sponsor selected by HPD, and once constructed, the portion of the building containing the clinic will need to be acquired by the city, necessitating the proposed acquisition action. The applicant is proposing to amend the Brooklyn Center URP. The applicant is seeking to extend the plan's duration to 99 years from the date of the approval of the Sixth Amendment to align with the duration of the new ground lease agreement. The applicant is also proposing modifications to the supplementary controls on sites, and it would require that a portion of the project area, Site 2, be developed as open space accessible to the public. as approved by HPD and in consultation with DCP. Brooklyn Community Board 2 held a public hearing on September 3rd and voted to approve the application with conditions, 27 in favor, 5 opposed, and 2 abstaining. The board included conditions to establish a community advisory group inclusive of both NYCHA and other legacy residents. Legacy residents, as defined by the board, are residents with decades-long and or multi-generational history of district residency. The board noted that representation of these legacy residents is critical to decisions for projects of this scale. Increase the number of permanently affordable family-sized units, even if it results in fewer units overall. Deepen affordability to provide units at 30% and 40% AMI, treating the MIH weighted average as a maximum, not a target. Double the unit count for applicants with mobility and hearing or visual impairments. Include a percentage of retail with lower lease costs. Include a community facility space for youth recreation and enrichment. Provide countdown clocks and bus shelters. Include a 20% set aside for formerly homeless units, and include a 20% set aside for CD2 residents, with a caveat that it can be less than 15% if occupancy begins beyond 2029, as per recent legislation. And lastly, provide a meaningful contribution to the Fort Greene Park Conservancy for ongoing maintenance and operations. The Brooklyn Borough President held a public hearing on October 15th and voted to approve the application with conditions. The Borough President included conditions to increase the level of affordability to exceed MIH to at least 40% of the project and better reflect community preferences highlighted by Community Board 2. Further improve site design to improve the public realm and the station area, including active investments in programming to activate and welcome diverse users, and installing countdown clocks and bus shelters, and opportunities to retain locally serving small businesses. Furthermore, the Borough President recommended that the Brooklyn office of the Department of City Planning and the Department of Parks and Recreation proactively advance and update an urban design framework for the neighborhood that would result in more open space, daylighting, and public realm improvements in nearby areas, and include an acquisition strategy to address underserved areas as reflected in the open space ratio, and expand upon the walk to park analysis that has recently been considered for Brooklyn Community District 5. HPD is the seeker lead agency. A notice of completion of a draft environmental impact statement was issued on August 8th. The DEIS identified significant adverse impacts with respect to transportation, traffic and pedestrians, and construction, traffic, pedestrians, and noise. Mitigation measures are identified in the DEIS and will be explored further in the FEIS. The applicant team has been provided with some key questions and topics from the commissioners that came up at certification and are prepared to respond on Wednesday. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Let me just run through, since it's a big project, an important one, the actions that we've got here. So the first is a zoning map amendment, C64 to C612, which would bump up the FAR from 10 or 12 with UAP up to 18, correct? Okay. Second, we have zoning text amendment.
Total FAR of 23.
I got it. I'm getting to that one next. Zoning text amendment for MIH. We've got the text amendment for the FAR increases to take us from 18 to 23, which modifies the residential FAR to 19 and then adds 4 more to allow for the non-residential base, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Then we have text amendment, and these are text amendments to the special downtown Brooklyn district, correct? To provide for setback relief. One of the modifications is there's an existing 15-foot required setback off of DeKalb Avenue.
That's right.
This would exempt 30% of the total street wall width from those requirements, correct? Okay. And then the second, it modifies the street wall continuity on Flatbush and Fulton. Okay, I'm going to ask you to clarify that one for me for 1 sec. I just want to make sure I understand. Next, the amendment to the urban renewal plan, extend it another for 99 years, including a provision that a portion of Site 2 would be open and accessible to the public.
That's right.
Okay. Then we have the disposition of city-owned property by HPD and DCAS to an entity.
That's right.
The entire property.
That's right.
And then a site selection and acquisition that would allow for the city, for the purposes of the Department of Health, to reacquire for clinic.
Yes. That's
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, let's go back to that second zoning text amendment, or the text amendment for the purpose of the Flatbush and Fulton frontage. Can you just explain that one to me, just to make sure that I am straight before Wednesday?
Absolutely. So currently, the special district requires street wall continuity along both Flatbush Avenue and Fulton Street, 100% street wall location. So the provision of open space would create a non-compliance. So what this does is offer a pathway for sites that provide publicly accessible open space to be set back from the street line and not meet the street wall location.
I see. Okay. So this is the provision that allows them to include the open space, because otherwise they would have had to have the street wall requirement, the frontage on Flatbush and Fulton. Okay.
Exactly right.
All right. Got it. Commissioner Benjamin.
Hi, thanks for the presentation, and thanks for meeting with me and going over my really boring but many concerns. And just to reiterate, I still remain concerned about why we're extending the urban renewal. Once the property is disposed of, I'm not sure what the urban renewal does for us. So I really would like an answer to what that actually gives us. As you know, I'm also concerned about the open space. Right now, there's open space at Flatbush and Fulton that is poorly used and that forces the buses that used to stop at that location, because they now have bollards up, and I assume with the open space that they're going to put something so that traffic, which is considerable, doesn't impinge into the open space. So the buses are forced across to the next street, south, where the sidewalk is very narrow, in part because they have a lot of construction on each side of the street, but the sidewalk was always very narrow. But now you have 6 buses stopping there, and once a bus is stopped, and cars can't get around it because there's only 1 lane in each direction now. I don't know if that's the continued plan under this proposal, but that's really not tenable unless we do something with that block south to enable it to accommodate the level of bus transportation and the numbers of people who get off the buses there in order to go to the subway. I did not recall that the applicant was being asked to contribute to Fort Greene Park. Is that something we're asking, or is that just something the community board and the borough president asked for?
I'll start with the last question first. So the community board at the public hearing had heard testimony from the Fort Greene Park Conservancy requesting additional maintenance and operations funding, given the anticipated increases in park usage. So the community board included a condition in acknowledgement of that, and the same happened at the borough president level as well.
But we haven't signed on to that, and we have no ability. It's beyond our purview, I'm assuming.
We only just heard about the recommendations through the ULURP process. We're considering it, evaluating it, and we will make a decision going forward.
But could we, as a matter of law and policy, make it a condition of the urban renewal or a condition of the special permit? Is that possible if we wanted to do it?
This is a question that I can take back to our consul's office and follow up with you, but there is no special permit. Oh, yes.
Let's let her take it back to him. Yeah, even though he is there, let's let her do that.
And I'll just note that there's no special permit mechanism involved. It is just a zoning map and zoning text amendment, and there's the urban renewal plan, but we will keep in mind this comment and we'll follow up with you.
Okay, and the other questions that I have, we've been talking about the massing, and we've been talking about the unit distribution and all of that, and I assume you've talked to the developer and they'll be responding to those.
So all of those questions, including about the URP, we have relayed to the developer. They'll be prepared to respond on Wednesday. And on the bus access, I will note that the development team has been in coordination with DOT closely on site planning needs, so they can expand, and the MTA as well. They've been in touch with both entities and will be able to speak to some of those points.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the work you've done and that you've put up with all of my questions.
Not at all. It's incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Thank you. I just had a question about process. It says here on the slide 18, at least in my information, proposed actions, disposition to allow the site to be conveyed to a sponsor to be selected by HPD. Now, Rabina and Park Tower Group are the applicants here.
That's right.
So they have been selected, have they not?
They're the current leaseholders, and HPD can expand upon how this would work, but they're the current leaseholders, and there would, I guess, be a step to make them or renegotiate the terms of that lease. So that is that process of reselecting them.
Oh, so they are leaseholders on the current building?
That's right, yes.
I see, okay. All right, that clarifies that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation, very thorough, and the materials as well.
Thank
you. I will ask some questions on Wednesday to the applicant team, but I just wanted to follow up quickly on whether you had a response from the department in terms of the Borough President's recommendations for the update of the urban design framework. I know that we've talked about that several times, and so I'm just wondering if you have a general response to that in terms of the planning part, but also in terms of the potential acquisition strategy to increase open space here, kind of like corridor or neighborhood-wide.
I think we'll be able to respond to you at post-hearing regarding those comments. We are reviewing it. For the first aspect with regards to updating the framework, that's something that we're actively able to do in terms of just general planning for the area, whether it's through individual applications that come in or as part of our continued work in the borough office. So we can certainly get back to you. And on the acquisition, that's something that we just received, the recommendation. So we will review and follow up with you.
Thank you. I'm excited about that. I mean, given the magnitude of this proposal, that sounds urgent. So thank you so much for that. I would appreciate it. And then the other question that I have for the department is, along the lines of what Commissioner Benjamin was asking in terms of, what is the public benefit of the urban renewal framework? I'm wondering if the department has explored potential provisions to guarantee right of return, something that the city, HPD specifically, could use in leveraging community preference or addressing the limitations, the constraints, the existing constraints to actively pursue or increase community preference here. This sounds like an opportunity to explore that, and I'm wondering if that's possible. Perhaps something to discuss internally, but I'm specifically very interested in hearing whether you think that there could be legal provisions to increase that here.
Thank you for that comment, Commissioner. We will relay that point to HPD and also kind of discuss internally and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Back to Commissioner Benjamin.
Just one last question, based on what Commissioner Osorio asked. What was on this site prior to this commercial building? And the thinking behind that is if there was residential, they may, if there are people still out there who were site-vested tenants at the time of the urban renewal, they may be another group of people who have the right of return already. When we did the Essex Street development, We had people who had moved off that site 50 years ago who were able to come back. Some of them lived in Long Island, but they were able to come back under the right of return. So you're right, that may be a great way to get a higher percentage, even if they don't live there now, of people who formerly lived there.
Absolutely. We can look into that further. So the conditions prior to 1974, prior to the creation of the Brooklyn Center Urban Renewal Plan. Okay, got it. We can take this question back to HPD and follow up with you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, thank you. I think we're all set for this one for Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The 15th item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for 5502 Flatlands Avenue. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning text amendment to Appendix F, removing MIH options 1 and 2 and adding option 3, and to modify the zoning map amendment. And staff believe these modifications are within scope. Kyra Cuevas is here to present.
All right, hello.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
And you.
Hello. Today I will be presenting a City Council modification for a scope determination at 5502 Flatlands Avenue, which was an application that was voted by the Commission on September 17th. This is a private application by 5502 Flat LLC to facilitate the construction of a new 7-story mixed-use building with 36 units, of which 11 would become income restricted pursuant to MIH and ground floor retail. The applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment from an R32 to a R6A C24 zoning district and a zoning text amendment to map an MIH area with options 1 and 2. This project is located within Community District 18 in the Flatlands neighborhood of Brooklyn and is within Councilmember Narcisse's district. On November 12th, the City Council voted to approve the application with modifications. These modifications would change the zoning map amendment from an R6A and C24 district to an R6B C24 district. The Council also modified the MIH options from options 1 and 2 to option 3. R6B is a contextual zoning district that permits a residential FAR of 2.4 with MIH and a community facility FAR of 3.0, with a base height of 30 feet and a max building height of 65 feet. Beyond the greater transit zone, parking spaces are required for 25% of market rate units. Under the modifications, the proposed development would be reduced by 27,000 square feet with a reduction of 20 units, 7 of which are income restricted, and a reduction of 20 feet in height. Parking will remain the same. These City Council modifications are within scope of City Environmental Quality Review, and that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Any questions here? Okay, I'm going to seek assent by a voice vote now to send a scope determination letter to the council. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Kyra.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next scope determination, please.
Okay. The 16th item on our agenda is a City Council modification scope determination for 699-703 Lexington Avenue. The City Council proposes to modify the zoning text amendment to Appendix F, removing MIH option 2 and adding option 3, and staff believe this modification is within scope.
Okay, everybody got it? Change of the MIH? Okay. All right, assent by a voice vote now, please, to send a scope determination to the City Council. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, guys have it. We will proceed with that letter. Madam Secretary, what's left?
Okay. Future votes for consideration on Wednesday, November 19th. Briefing materials were provided on 22 Farview Place and 16 Callan Avenue Pool and Patio in Staten Island Community District 2, and on 113 Arbutus Avenue in Staten Island Community District 3. Also, staff have prepared reports for Eagle Street demapping and 1518 Francis Lewis Boulevard commercial overlay. Okay. And then lastly, for post-hearing follow-ups, we have 1417 Avenue U rezoning, which had a public hearing at the November 5th public meeting. The team will present at the December 1st review session.
Great. Anything else on the list?
No, Chair Grodnick.
Okay, with that, my appreciation to all of you. We'll see you at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, and with that, we are adjourned.
Time is 3:26 p.m.